Hello and welcome to The New Journey by Settle Fast, a show that empowers and inspires newcomers to connect to them with mentors, with service providers, with jobs, and inspires them to take action, to grow skills, find new jobs, and launch new businesses. My name is Gurvinder and I'm the founder of Settle Fast. In today's episode, we'll be speaking with Christine. She has tons of amazing experience, an MBA from University of New Brunswick, and to talk more about her journey, her story, her challenges, we would like to welcome you, Christine. How are you?
Thank you very much for having me. I'm doing very fine. And yourself?
Perfect. Really good. Thank you so much. Yeah, and thanks
Awesome.
so much for taking this time. I know it's pretty late for you there in New Brunswick. I'm sitting on the opposite side of the country here, but I appreciate you taking your time and joining us for sharing your journey, your insights, and your story with our audience here.
It's an absolute pleasure, really, because as you know, when we came in as newcomers, we learned from other people's experiences. And so it's only natural that we get opportunities like this. We just have to take it and share our experiences with others because you never know whose life you might be saving or whose experience you might be enhancing. So thanks again for having me.
Perfect. So just jumping on this conversation, tell us about your background. Tell us about your journey into Canada so far, and what's your story behind this?
Okay, so first and foremost, most immigrants always, as with most immigrants, we always were looking for opportunities for better, greener pastures, right, for ourselves and our children. And so our journey began over 7 years ago. And so I'm originally from Nigeria, and I came to Canada in 2014 as an international student for my MBA program. So, and in the course of those years, I've been in the education sector, I've been a fashion designer, and currently a leadership facilitator. So over a combined 10 years experience in the non-sector industry.
Perfect. And I know you work a lot with the newcomer groups here in your present job and also in your free time. So tell us about the work that you do with the newcomer communities and the newcomers that you work with. Tell us about a little about that.
Okay, so I currently work as program coordinator for the Newcomer Women Leadership Program at Prude Inc. And it's a non-profit which provide services for individuals facing barriers. And so my main goal is to work with, excuse me, to work with newcomer women who are new to the country. And so when we talk about newcomers, we're talking about people who've lived in the country or in a city or the region in over 5 years and below. So my role with these women is basically to provide opportunities for them to grow, build their personal and professional portfolio, if I may use that term, but basically to provide guidance as they navigate their settlement plan here in St. John. So it's an incredible opportunity for me to be a part of their leadership plan, be a part of their life. And so one of the ways we do that is through leadership workshops, which I get facilitators and guest speakers from the community who are experts in this field. And so we could take topics from communication skills, entrepreneurship skills, and networking, those topics that are very, very crucial and important to newcomers. We try to bring it to them at their fingertips, more to say. So it's really an incredible opportunity to help newcomer women settle in community.
Okay. So just going back to your journey, you mentioned you came in 2014 as an MBA student. What were the motivations? You mentioned, greener pastures is one, but what were some of the other motivations, behind moving to Canada? And what sort of challenges you had, when you were moving? Because I know, being an immigrant myself, I know it's not easy to move from your original country, but walk us through that journey, when you were making that decision to maybe selecting the college, maybe selecting the universities, because a bigger part of our audience is, newcomer students our international students. So we just wanted to lay it out for them as well, as to how you decided upon, taking this course, this country, and what were some of the challenges that you had faced initially.
Okay, so let me start with why when so as international students when we're coming in when we're submitting our application, we're always you just reminded me of the it's called statement of purpose. Why
Yeah.
Canada? Why the program? Why now? And
Mhm.
things like that. So let me speak to that. So prior to coming to Canada, we done our research and we wanted to go to a country where opportunities will be better and easier to access. And so Canada, we picked Canada because it was and is still ranked among the top livable countries in the world. And upon the research, we thought, okay, but this would be a good country for us to come to and get settled. And then why the MBA program? The MBA program because my first degree was in education, but
Mhm.
we thought MBA is it's considered a leveler. So if you're looking to change your career or do something different, it's usually a good opportunity or a junction to be able to break out from something you're doing because now you learn new skills and new ways of doing things. And so I wanted a business degree that would allow me pursue my interest in the nonprofit sector. So prior to coming to Canada, I had worked at a nonprofit, an
Okay.
educational nonprofit, and then what we did basically was to help young girls and boys especially get access to education and do that. But then that was just as at the best I could. But with an MBA, I thought about owning nonprofits and working um working on project and programs, which is what I'm currently doing. So I would say an MBA is a leveler for anyone who's looking to change a career or do something different with their lives. And then why now? Well, at that time, it was just the only viable option for us to to take. So when you're talking about challenges, so again, in spite of the fact that we had done our research, for if you go online, you check Canada, you see the beautiful cities, everything, but you can never get everything online.
Yeah.
And so as with most people, as soon as we came into the country, of course there were some obvious challenges, things like isolation, loneliness, depression, language barriers, and of course, the big one, racism, right? So, in an environment where these are issues, you always constantly be navigating the terrains with such barriers. But at the end of the day, it's something one has to face up and find avenues to, work around them. So the other challenges I could talk about, so beside food and culture shock,
Yeah.
loneliness and adaptation, I found that being on the wait list, trying to get family doctors, being on the wait
Yeah.
being on the wait list for up to 3 years, especially when you have kids, is a big issue. In fact, I find it very surprising that, in a country like Canada, one would have to wait up to 3 years to get a family doctor, you know,
Mhm.
especially when you're coming from a country where um, almost every institution is operated on a walk-in system. Even scheduling salon visits, you need appointment. Sometimes my friends and I we joke about it like even before you talk to anyone, you just have to, go to my calendar and book an appointment. It's like, okay, well, that's the culture that we're in. So
Yeah.
those are some of the challenges, that I can possibly speak to at this time.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And as a newcomer myself, and came to Canada in 2010 as an international student. And for me, one of the first things that I started doing was looking for opportunities to connect with, local organizations. Was there anything like that, or any organizations, local organizations that were supporting you in this journey as an international student? Or were there any other support groups that you had, access resources from at that time?
So well, it's good you mentioned that because as an international student, we're considered as economic immigrants, right? So
Hmm.
economic immigrants do not have access to the same resources that other categories of immigrants coming to Canada, they're exposed to. So at that time in
Mhm.
2014, we had nothing. So everything we had to do was within the school system. So even
Yeah.
networking opportunities were done through some of our MBA programs, activities which were hosted in the community. So we took advantage of such networking opportunities. I remember when I wanted to start my business, Kaima Designs, I had gone to one of the government agencies, to register where they provided business training and resources, and I was told I wasn't eligible because I didn't have a PR status, and so I had to go do it on my own. I can't tell you how difficult that was. Of course, but it wasn't an easy journey. But again, things are a lot easier today for most newcomers because as at this year, I know some programming that were not accessible to students then and now being accessible to
Yeah.
international students. So I think that's a huge improvement because, and some of the drawbacks to that was that when students came in here, as soon as they graduated, they left the province. They couldn't stay because there weren't
Yeah.
support groups or communities to help them stay, and even it kind of like explore the community in which they had, when you're coming into Canada,
Yeah.
the environment where you schooled is like your host community, your first port of call. So most of them, after 3 months, nothing was forthcoming, they left. And so
Mhm.
those are some of the challenges. And I'm sure that when the government saw that, they had
Yeah.
to review some of those policies. And today, I must say most international students are having it a lot easier than it was some years back.
Perfect. And going a step further, so you graduate in 2016 or 17?
In 2015, it is a 1 year
Oh,
accelerated MBA
1 year
program.
program. Okay. Yeah. So
Yes.
you graduate. What happens after that once you graduate? How was the world to you?
Okay. So, upon graduation, I wanted to. I tried to get jobs. So, fortunately for me, I was able to get a job a few a few months after my graduation because having gone through the MBA program, I wanted to. I always had a dream to start a business, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't get to do a lot of sales and customer service related roles,
Hmm.
kind of like exposure. So of course it was all textbook knowledge, but I
Yeah.
wanted hands-on experience, and so I sought employment opportunities in those areas. So I had my first job was at Xerox as a sales representative, and then after 6 months, I was like, okay, well, I think I have enough of what I need in this area. And again, I'm not a salesperson per se. It was so personal. I think I have to be very open here. It was a very challenging role for me at that time because I was assigned to the American market, and being an
Okay.
immigrant, of course, I don't have the accent, right? And so,
Yeah.
and after if you know anyone who did any business with American market, you'd find out that after the 9/11, crisis, most people never wanted to do business with anyone on the phone. And so here I was trying to sell things to people over the phone. And as soon as I
Yeah.
mentioned my name and they heard my accent, they're like, sorry, where are you calling from? Once you mentioned Canada, they just hung up on me.
Yeah.
But some people were more welcoming, and then because I had some sales that again, it was really very challenging. I was like, I couldn't build a long-term career out of this. And then I went on to work at TD Bank as a customer representative, and I really loved it there
Mhm.
because being a people person, I got a chance
Yeah.
to help customers solve their problems, and so I loved it. I loved to work with them every day, and actually, it was while I was working at as a frontline um, employee that I did a bit of my market study for my business. So I love to wear my African print blazers, jacket, dresses because I've always wanted to tell my African stories through my business in whatever form I could. And then I I wore them very proudly. And so when my clients saw them, they always asked me questions about the clothing, where they came from, and all that. So eventually, I had to, as a result of that, I asked questions like, okay, if you see this, would you like to have this, and stuff like that. And by the end of 27, yeah, 2017, I had launched my business, Kaima Designs, and it's still ongoing right now. And so This could be my experiences.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. That's a fascinating story you have there. Uh, Going a step further now into your journey, so you start your own business. You are a fashion designer as well. Where did the inspiration come from to start your own business, and how's the world and the entrepreneurship look like to you?
Okay, so let me put it this way. I growing up as a child, I I was really fascinated by, well-dressed people, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm someone who loves to have quotes around me and motivational thoughts. So there were two main quotes that really that really stood out for me when I was growing up. So looking good is good business. And
Okay.
that was one quote that stuck out for me. It stuck with me throughout my childhood. And then as I grew older and started listening to motivational talks, the next best one for me was you are addressed the way you are dressed, you know. And so that's part of my interest in the fashion industry. And then because it's it's occurred to me that society really cares about one's image. And sometimes some people will tell you image is everything, right? And so those were some of the things that played in my head. But when I started fashion, it's like, but the main inspiration to start fashion really came in my grade 8. So I had finished my grade 8, just about to get into grade 9, which is like high school. My friend and I, decided to design some clothes. Most girls actually dress up dolls growing up. So we wanted to take it a step further. So instead of just dressing dolls, we thought we could dress ourselves. And then we reached out to a seamstress. We drew it out on paper and said, "Can you create this for us?" She was like, nope, this is not gonna work. And we're disappointed. But I was like, okay, hold on one second. If we paid you to
Yeah.
create these designs for us, would you do it? She said yes, but she won't take. I was like, don't worry about taking the fall for
Yeah.
it or bearing the responsibility. Yours, so let's establish something here. Your role is to create exactly what we have here, and ours is to pay you and provide the
Yeah.
materials. Are we good? She said yes. Perfect. And that was how she designed it. And so even the seamstress was surprised at the
Yeah.
outcome of the design. She was like, "Oh my god, I didn't think it was." I was like, "Good." So with that, after 2 months, we went back to her again, and then we asked her to design is this time to design a second outfit for us. This time, no questions asked, and she just designed the clothes for us. She made the clothes for us,
Wow.
and that was how we created our first designs. But I didn't do
Yeah.
anything with them. I didn't do anything with the clothes or with the design or anything until after I came to Canada. However, my friend with whom we started the journey together, she went on to fashion school, fashion design school, and then pursued that. But for me, I wanted to do other things, and so I went to did my degree in education, and
Yeah.
then continued with the MBA program. And then, but after the MBA program, I wanted to launch a business, but I didn't know what business to launch or how to even start. But I knew I
Mm.
wanted to do something because I thought it would be unfair, or it would be an injustice if I spent 1 full year learning about business and not being
Yeah.
able to start my own business. Then my
Yeah.
MBA is a waste. And so I decided I was going to start something, but I wasn't sure what to do. So one of my biggest struggles at that time was finding the business. So at some point I knew I wanted to do it. Then at some point I knew I wanted to go into clothing business because of the quotes I told you about my background, image, personality, and all that. But I didn't want to just start a clothing business
Hmm.
just like every other, especially in Canada. Clothes,
Yeah.
like what kind of clothing can you really bring that's new and different, right? And
Yeah.
for you to even compete on costs and delivery and time. And I was like, okay, well, I've always been proud of my heritage and I always wanted to share my African stories, through my so like now I'm going to do a clothing business and I'm going to do it here. But again, I wanted a bigger why to
Yeah.
do it. So why would I do the clothing business? And
Hmm.
so it occurred to me, it occurred to me that my mom was a child bride, and so by the time I was 8 years old, she was widowed, and I witnessed her lived experiences and struggles.
Yeah.
associated with the vacuum that was created by the abrupt interruption to her education. And so it was even worse because at that time, I think she was in grade 4 or so when she was asked to leave school to go get married, So, and the saddest part of the story was like she loved to go to school. She wanted to go to school, but her parents wanted to give her out in marriage. And so against her will, she was married
Yeah.
off. And then about some years later, say probably about 8 or 9, she was widowed. So now this is a woman with little or no education, widowed with 3 kids, and then she just had to, figure out her life. So
Yeah.
watching her and thinking about her life, I just kept because when she shared her story with us, I felt so bad. And I was like, you know what? If I ever get a chance, I'll do everything I can to help young girls go to school. I'll do
Hmm.
everything I can to encourage um advocacy for girl child education and
Yeah.
women empowerment, because
Yeah.
her story because you know what it means for today I do homework with my children. My mom couldn't do that because she didn't have the education to teach me or work with me. So
Yeah.
I relied on teachers and parents. So those were sort of my stories. And so when I
Yeah.
decided to do a business, I was like, it has to be something that
Yeah.
empowers women and a girl child. And so if I was going to do clothing business, then it has to be something, my mission will be tied to that. And so I created a business that will be supporting girl child education, particularly vulnerable girls in West Africa. So what it means is like if I start this business, for every item I sell, a uniform
Yeah.
is provided to a girl child in Nigeria or another West African country. And so for me, that was my why.
That.
And so because I felt that yes, I could do any other thing, but as long as this business is created to fulfill this mission, then now I'm comfortable because the whole idea behind having a why to your business is that when everything fails, when you lose motivation, when you lose fund, when everything fails, the why keeps you going because that is the only thing you would remember.
Yeah.
And so beyond all my fascination and an interest with those quotes about images, everything. I wanted to create a brand that promoted true beauty. And true beauty really to me, and to my brand, Kaima Designs, it's look good and feel great by empowering a fellow human being. And so that's it's the story behind my business.
Wow. That's amazing. I'll take this quote. Look good and feel great. I think that's a very powerful, motto that you have behind it. So
Look
just
good,
going
feel
back.
great by empowering a fellow human being. Yeah.
Awesome. I think that's a great tagline right there. So I know you work a lot in the corporate social responsibilities. I have a full page of your bio that I, found out from your research then when I was doing about you, about your, history, about what you are doing currently. And you also co-founded United Colors of Fashion, which is a non-profit basically revolving around harnessing, newcomers' talent and persons of BIPOC heritage in the fashion industry, and you create business opportunities for them. Tell us something about your this initiative about
Absolutely.
new United Colors of Fashion. Tell us something about this story.
Okay, just a bit. Okay, so we United Colors of Fashion, as a co-founder. So what we do basically is provide training opportunities as well, train and entrepreneurship opportunities for newcomer women and basically other individuals facing barriers through basic sewing skills and fashion program, which is at no cost to them. So when I started my business, Kaima Designs, I realized there were some challenges. So one of them was that I couldn't produce my clothes here in Canada because access
Yeah.
to fabrics and then the cost of labor were
Hmm.
just were just crazy. And what I did was to produce them back home in Nigeria and then ship them here. The whole idea behind that was because by creating them in Nigeria, the women who were making them were being empowered. Remember, the goal is empower girl, child, and women. So
Yeah.
the women were producing them and being paid fair wages for doing that. And then
Mhm.
when the clothes were sold, the girls would get uniform. So that was the way I balanced it. But again, there was this, excuse me, but I still wanted to have people within Canada to partner with and so that it can be a balanced matrix for me.
Yeah.
But I couldn't really afford the cost of making it here in Canada. And then during the COVID crisis in 2019, the onset of COVID crisis, it impacted my supply chain, so I couldn't really bring
Yeah.
in, and then I had to think inwardly, and so one of the things I did was to create, so the hoodie you see me wearing, it's one of my designs. So that's
Hmm.
Kaima Designs hoodie. When you look at this, you can see that it tells a story here, which
Hmm.
is like, it tells like we're unique individuals, but we are connected in some ways, irrespective of our race, gender, and economic or social status, right? And then we all we're all within the universe and we're interdependent on one another. So this was something that came up during the COVID
Yeah.
situation, and then we had to work with a local organization here. So by partnering with a local organization, which is another non-profit that is that um, that is committed to providing employment opportunities for Canadians living with disabilities. So then I got the balance I was looking for. So through my business, I was providing something for Canadian non-profits, at the same time for the African um, group as well. However, there was still a gap when it came to the production. And
Hmm.
so, and there were other things I wanted to do. I wanted to provide like training opportunity, but I couldn't do that as an individual or as Kaima Designs because, when it came to funding, for profit businesses are not looked upon favorably as such. If it's not loans or other things, and you can't readily go for loans except you're sure that your business plan or idea
Yeah.
your idea is watertight and like it has to, you know, you're sure that this is a goal. And so as a result of those challenges, so my friend and I created UCOF so that we could bring in newcomers who either people who are looking to get new skills in the sewing and fashion industry or people who already have skills but looking to enhance them.
Yeah.
So by creating that platform, we wanted to provide opportunities for them. As you know, before I started working at Prud, I had worked at YMCA as a language instructor, and I knew some of the challenges that my students faced because most of them, especially those who came as refugees, they had very little or no education, and as a result of that, their chances of getting employment, were very slim. Most
Hmm.
of them were people who came with who had like skills such as carpentry, the people would call like unskilled workers, right?
Yeah.
Now they're now they find themselves in a country where things are different. You need some level of education to even do some unskilled work.
Yeah.
And so these are people who are already dealing with other um, other challenging situations, and then putting in education piece makes it even more overwhelming. Some of them
Mm.
just want to do things that required little or no language, right? Just things they could learn by through observations and something with very little English. And so that was the other reason I had to create that, because I wanted them to do something with their hands, not just with the language. And at the
Yeah.
same time, they would learn the language because it would be done in English. And then as part of it, we provide like some language. Um, we provided opportunities for them to enhance their language skills. And so beyond the sewing, they were improving their language skills. I know one or two students who, when they started the program, they wouldn't talk much, just occasional nodding and not, but now they could construct some sentences in English, and these are sentences that are related to the skills they're learning. I think that's a huge improvement. And so working with a newcomer or immigrant group, I see the challenges because I can relate to most of them. And so when I see those challenges, I want to do something in my own way to give back. And so creating UCOF, it's my own way of giving back to the newcomer community, because the best way we can grow that community is by empowering them with the right skills.
Hmm.
And that's what we do.
Thanks.
And sorry, I forgot something. So again, by the time they're done with learning these skills, we provide a platform for them to showcase their designs or products through our annual fashion shows. And so we
Oh, wow.
exactly. So last year we held the first ever UCO Fall Fashion Show, and it was well received, very good. And so we're working towards the next one, and then we're grooming the students. And some of them already provide are creating some pieces that will be showcased at the fashion show. And these are people who had no prior knowledge or
Hmm.
experience with sewing.
Wow, that's an amazing initiative that you're working on. I congratulate you
Thank
on the work that you do in the community. And speaking about the community, so you were settled in New Brunswick. Tell us about
you.
the province. Tell us about the community you live in. The your neighbors. How has your life been in this community?
Okay, so if you know New Brunswick, also they call it usually like the Maritimers. And one thing I would tell you about the Maritimers, like why a lot of people come here, is that the people here are really very nice. And I recall as an student, the first, I think it was my first week month here, I had gone to the stores to buy things, and I had, I had my mattresses, I had everything. It didn't
Yeah,
occur to me that I needed you can relate to that. It didn't occur to me that I had no way of transporting them. I was like, oh, I know I needed all of this. And then that was like
yeah,
poor planning. And then I just stood outside the mall and I was just thinking, I was like, I didn't know how to get a taxi. So back home, you could just come out and flag down a taxi, right?
hmm,
It's not an issue. And taxis were
yeah,
usually around the malls. But I learned that you have to have the taxi on your phone so that whenever you
yeah.
needed, you call the taxi. I didn't know that, right? And this is like before, at least before the era of Uber and Co. We don't even have Uber here
Yes,
right now, And
yeah.
so I was just stood there, just like I didn't even know what to do, and I didn't know how to ask anyone for help. And so a young lady standing, she just looked at me and she knew I needed help, and she just said, "Do you need a taxi?" I was like, "Yes, I do." "Okay, don't worry, I'll get one for you." I was shocked. And then she picked up her phone and dialed the taxi company, and then the taxi came, and I went. I just, I just kept thinking about that experience.
Mhm.
And then there've been other cases where I'll just be walking on the street. You know how newcomers when they are looking up the street and looking up all the signs, and so
Yeah,
you will
yeah,
go,
yeah.
you
People
will
could
go,
easily
and
see you that that you need some assistance. Yeah.
so people sometimes just looking up, somebody walks up to you, where are you going to?
Hmm.
Are you lost? And just even without asking for help,
Yeah.
people just offer assistance, people offer, and then when you now ask for help, it comes in their torrent. And so I
Mm.
would say, beyond the green, the vegetation, beyond the beautiful scenery, the best thing about my province, and particularly my state, or sorry, like my city, is the warmth of the people. And
Yeah.
we can't trade it for anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of that, I have a similar experience story. I think I'll just share it with you because it builds on what you're mentioning. So, I was new to Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. So it was minus 40 or minus 45 on that
Wow.
particular day. And it was snowing badly. I had never, you know, driven in a snowstorm. And here I was trying to drive my car in the snowstorm and it got stuck. And I was
Oh.
trying to really, push the throttle hard and see if it comes out of the snow banks. It wouldn't. And to my surprise, when I looked out of the rear mirror, I saw two ladies pushing my car, and I had no
Wow.
idea that there was somebody else, who was helping me out. So I can completely relate with the story that you are trying to, tell here. Is the warmth of the people is what makes your journey, so pleasant, so helpful, and it sometimes makes you forget everything that might have happened in this journey, any
Exactly.
hardship, any struggle that you have, that it completely erases your memory, and
Exactly.
it brightens
It,
your day up. So yeah,
yeah.
thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, it tends to balance it out, so it's not always good,
Exactly.
it's always bad, some
Yeah.
ups and downs, and like,
Yeah.
which is normal in everyday life.
Perfect. So now you see, there are hundreds of thousands of newcomers who come to Canada every year. At the same time, we have a huge labor shortage, we have a huge skills gap, and we have, people who are coming to Canada not being able to find jobs as well, even though there are jobs available. Um, what has been your experience, or what suggestions you have for newcomers who come to Canada to make their the job search journey a bit successful? What kind of suggestions you have for them?
Okay. So yeah, like you rightly mentioned, it's not easy, especially in fact it's more challenging for immigrants who are highly skilled, with
Hmm.
all the education, even with master's degree, to struggle to get a job. It's really very frustrating and depressing, because of a host of different factors. So
Yeah,
again, the thing is, like, in an era where discrimination is still an issue, I always talk about that. The fact remains that one thing that remains is that no one can despise an indispensable man or woman. So the key is invest in yourself. So while you're looking for a job or anything, invest in yourself and constantly improve on your skills. So you may have the right skills, you may have everything, but you may be lacking the Canadian experience.
yeah,
You may not. Even just with the interviews, the HR personnel, they're looking. There's some things they're looking for, and you may not have those. And then the next thing is, how do I get the Canadian experience? And so it's always good for people to volunteer in the community, because through volunteering opportunities, most people have gotten mentors in their areas of career or entrepreneurial interest. Because when you volunteer, you work with people in Canada, when you get a job or when you're applying for jobs, it's a lot easier for you to get your references within Canada. So you build your Canadian experience and you get references within, just by volunteering alone. Then the other thing I would say is, it's be nice, it's great for newcomers to connect with other newcomers, because they will help you avoid pitfalls and help you access some services much faster.
yeah,
Then the other thing I would say again is, like, for anyone who wants to um who's looking to start a job or career or anything, just try and have the courage to make that decision, whatever the decision is, that decision to move your career or business forward. Have the courage to do it. Be committed to your why, and then ensure accountability to yourself and to your stakeholders. And then, but if the person is looking to get, say, maybe, um for someone who is particularly looking to start a business, there are a whole lot of things they could do. So I'm just trying to, so, well, when we talk about newcomers, immigrant, we just like put them broadly together.
yeah.
But again, depending on what their goals are. So for someone who is starting, who is looking for a job, it's quite different from someone who wants to start a business, right?
Yes.
And so for someone who is starting a business, my advice would be, first, you have to think about bootstrapping, for bootstrapping initially, to test your ideas, because if you can't commit your own funds to your
Yeah,
idea, it will be difficult for funders or investors to do the same, right?
yeah,
And so when you bootstrap, and then if the idea seems viable, then seeking external funding will be the natural next step. And then at
mm,
this point, you'll be ready to prepare to write a business plan and then be ready to pitch your ideas to investors and funders. Now, the other crucial thing is that anyone looking to start a business should connect with the appropriate settlement agencies in their cities. I can't stress this enough. I've worked with settlement agencies. I see some of the resources that are available, and most times they are
Yeah.
underutilized.
Hmm.
People do not even know that these resources are available, and
I just
so,
wanted to cut you here and mention that this is something very powerful that you're saying is to connect with the service providers in their cities, because there are a lot of resources which are already available. I think it's the lack of awareness or
mhm.
access of those resources that becomes a major issue. So yeah, thanks for pointing that out. It couldn't be better said. What you're mentioning here. Yeah.
No, really, because because they have these tons of valuable resources to help newcomers navigate their settlement plan seamlessly. It's only natural that you know they they just they take advantage of it,
Yeah.
because both at the federal and provincial government, these are available. For example, in 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 New Brunswick, or do I see the Atlantic region here,
Yeah.
we have the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency called ACOA. So what it is like, they work to create opportunities for economic growth in the region by helping businesses become more competitive, innovative, and productive, by
Okay.
working with diverse communities to develop and diversify local economies, and by championing the strengths of Atlantic Canada. So
Wow.
actually, they go as far as conducting marketing research and providing business plan guides for their clients. So it's like, you want to start a business, these are the resources.
Hmm.
And that's one of the things that people, at least people, if newcomers in Atlantic region, they have access to that. And this is one of the federal government agencies as well, right? So I know in your region and other provinces, there will be other organizations providing such services. Then the other thing again is, for a woman especially, we have
Yeah.
they have organizations like what's it called, Women in Business. Is another organization that supports women entrepreneurs with business resources. Sometimes they provide funding, grants, but the bulk of what they do is that they provide resources and training opportunities, basically. you
Okay.
know. So those are some of the things that would help anyone starting a business. And then, don't please ask the right questions. Reach out to people who are already in the business you're interested in. Ask the right questions and ask for guidance. And sometimes ask to see if you can, shadow them and see what it looks
Yeah.
like, because you may have the best business plan, you may have the right ideas, but when you execute it, it doesn't always pan
Yeah.
out as you would assume. Things happen, you
Hmm.
know.